The rain poured relentlessly, drumming against the pavement as Emma pulled her thin jacket tighter around her shivering frame. The cold bit through the fabric, but she barely noticed. Her stomach twisted in hunger, but she had long learned to ignore it. Tonight, like many others, she walked home through the city's wealthy district, a place where the buildings stretched high into the sky, their bright lights mocking the darkness she lived in. She didn't belong here. She knew that. Her world was a small run-down apartment she shared with her sick mother and little brother, where every meal was a battle and every bill felt like an insurmountable mountain. But fate had led her here tonight. That was when she saw it. A black leather wallet, lying abandoned on the wet sidewalk, right outside a luxurious restaurant. It looked expensive. Far too expensive for someone like her to even dream of owning. She hesitated, glancing around. There was no one nearby. Carefully, she picked it up, her fingers trembling slightly. Emma's heart pounded as she flipped it open. The first thing she saw was money, more than she had ever seen in one place. Stacks of crisp $100 bills, enough to change her life overnight. Enough to buy medicine for her mother, enough to feed her brother for months. For a moment, the temptation was overwhelming. No one would know, no one would suspect her. She could take the money, leave the wallet somewhere, and walk away. But then she saw the ID tucked neatly inside. Ethan Carter. The name sent a jolt through her. She had heard it before. Everyone had. Ethan Carter. The billionaire CEO of Carter Enterprises, a man who lived in a world so far removed from hers that it may as well have been another universe. She looked at the wallet again, then at the money. Her hands trembled, but she knew what she had to do. With a sigh, she pulled out a small piece of paper from her pocket. It was the back of an old receipt, the only scrap she had. With the tiny pencil she carried for her brother's homework, she scribbled a short note. Her fingers hesitated before she placed it inside the wallet, right next to the money. A part of her wondered if he would even read it, if he would even care. But she had nothing else to give. With one last deep breath, she walked toward the restaurant, stepping inside hesitantly. The warmth of the place wrapped around her like a foreign sensation, the scent of rich food making her stomach ache. She clutched the wallet tightly, scanning the crowd for the man whose face she had only seen in newspapers and on TV, and then she saw him. Ethan Carter sat at a corner table, his suit pristine, his presence commanding. He wasn't alone. Businessmen sat around him, laughing over their extravagant meals. His expression was unreadable, his focus on the documents in front of him. Emma's heart pounded. She wanted to turn around and run. What if they accused her of stealing? What if they didn't believe her? But then she thought of her mother's tired face, her little brother's hopeful eyes. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan glanced up, his gaze sharp and assessing. "Yes." Emma swallowed hard and extended the wallet toward him. I found this outside. It belongs to you." For a moment, he didn't react. The men around him went silent, their laughter fading as they watched the unexpected scene unfold. Ethan reached out, taking the wallet from her hands. His fingers brushed against hers, his skin warm, hers ice cold. He flipped it open, his brows drawing together slightly. He checked the money first, of course. Emma held her breath, but then his fingers found the small note. His expression shifted. His eyes moved across the scribbled words, his lips parting slightly. The room seemed to shrink as a strange silence settled over the table. And then Ethan Carter did something that no one, least of all Emma, expected. He looked up, his gaze locking onto hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. Who wrote this? He asked, his voice quieter now, laced with something Emma couldn't quite place. Emma hesitated. I did, she admitted, barely above a whisper. Ethan stared at her for a long moment. Then without a word, he stood up. The entire table watched in stunned silence as the billionaire, one of the most powerful men in the city, turned away from his high-profile meeting and focused entirely on a girl who had nothing. Come with me, he said. Emma's heart pounded in her chest. What had she written in that note that had shaken a billionaire? And what was he going to do now? He pulled out a checkbook. Emma's stomach twisted. No, she said instantly. Ethan raised an eyebrow. You don't even know what I'm going to do. You're going to offer me money, she said, her voice firm. And I don't want it. He smirked slightly. Pride. She shook her head. Dignity. Ethan tapped the pen against the checkbook, watching her with a look of intrigue. You'd rather struggle than accept help. I'd rather earn it, she said. A long silence stretched between them. Then Ethan closed the checkbook and set it aside. All right, he said simply. Then work for me. Emma's breath caught in her throat. What? I need a new personal assistant, Ethan said, shrugging. Someone who won't lie to me. Someone I can trust. She stared at him in disbelief. You don't even know me, she said. I know enough, he said. I know you could have walked away with a small fortune tonight, and you didn't. That tells me everything I need to know. Emma's heart pounded. This wasn't just an offer. This was a lifeline. A chance to change everything. But she wasn't sure if stepping into Ethan Carter's world would save her or destroy her. Emma's heart pounded in her chest. Ethan Carter, one of the most powerful men in the city, was offering her a job, a real opportunity, a way out. She should have been thrilled. She should have said yes immediately. But something held her back. What's the catch? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's lips twitched slightly. No catch. Just work hard, be honest, and don't let me regret this. Emma's throat tightened. It sounded so simple, yet she knew nothing about his world. What if she messed up? What if she wasn't good enough? But then she thought of her mother, lying in bed, too weak to work. She thought of her little brother, who had been skipping meals so she could eat. She straightened her shoulders. Okay, she said. I'll do it. Ethan nodded, as if he had expected that answer all along. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Emma found herself thrown into a world she had only seen in magazines and news articles. Expensive suits, high-stakes meetings, late-night calls. It was nothing like the life she had known. At first, she felt completely out of place. The other employees whispered about her, wondering why a billionaire would suddenly hire a girl with no experience. But Emma was determined. She worked harder than anyone else, staying late, learning everything she could. She took notes, memorized schedules, and refused to let her doubts get the best of her. Ethan, surprisingly, was patient. He pushed her, but he also guided her. He wasn't the cold businessman the world saw him as. He was sharp, demanding, but also fair, and over time their relationship shifted. He started to trust her. He listened to her opinions. One evening, after a long day at the office, Ethan asked her to stay behind. You've done well, he said, glancing at the papers on his desk. Emma felt a small sense of pride. Thank you. Ethan leaned back, in his chair. But I have one last question. Emma tensed. What is it? He pulled out the note she had left in his wallet the night they met. The paper was worn now, as if he had read it over and over again. You wrote that you know what it's like to have something taken from you, he said. I never asked. But was it just about your father leaving? Emma froze. She had never told him the whole truth. She swallowed hard. No, she admitted. It wasn't just that. Ethan didn't rush her. He waited. Emma hesitated, then took a deep breath. A year ago, I had saved up enough money to finally get my mom the treatment she needed, she said quietly. It wasn't much, but it was something. I kept the money hidden in our apartment, but one day, someone broke in. Ethan's jaw tightened. They took everything. She continued, her voice shaking. Everything I had worked for. And just like that, it was gone. Silence filled the room. Emma hadn't spoken about it in a long time. The pain, the helplessness. It had haunted her for months. Ethan exhaled slowly, his gaze dark with understanding. I'm sorry, he said. Emma forced a small smile. It's in the past. Ethan shook his head. No, it's not. Before she could ask what he meant, he opened a drawer and pulled out a file. He slid it across the desk toward her. Emma frowned. What's this? Open it, Ethan said. With shaky hands, she did, and what she saw inside made her breath hitch. It was a bank statement. A large deposit had been made into an account under her name. Enough money to cover her mother's treatment. Enough money to change everything. Her head snapped up. Ethan, I can't. You can, he said firmly. And you will. Tears burned in her eyes. But I told you, I don't want handouts. Emma hesitated, her breath catching in her throat. The restaurant was still buzzing with murmurs as Ethan Carter stood there, waiting for her to follow. His sharp gaze hadn't wavered from her face, and for the first time, she felt truly exposed, like he could see past the layers of struggle she carried every day. Her fingers curled into fists as she weighed her choices. She could turn around and leave, pretend none of this had happened. Or she could follow him and step into a world that had never been meant for someone like her. Before she could talk herself out of it, her feet moved. Ethan led her away from the main dining area, down a quiet hallway where the noise of the restaurant faded. A waiter nodded respectfully as he opened a private lounge, letting them inside. The space was dimly lit, elegant but not intimidating. Ethan walked over to a sleek bar and poured himself a glass of water before turning to face her. Emma's hands felt cold and clammy. She had never been this close to someone so powerful, so untouchable, and yet the way he looked at her, curious, calculating, made her feel like she was something more than just a poor girl returning a lost wallet. You wrote the note, Ethan said, his voice steady. Tell me why. Emma swallowed hard. She hadn't expected him to ask about it. Maybe a simple, thank you, or a nod of acknowledgement, but not this. She lowered her gaze. I just thought you should know, she said softly. His jaw tensed. Know what? Emma bit her lip. She had already gone this far. There was no turning back now. That not everyone in this world takes what isn't theirs, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Not everyone chooses the easy way out, even when they're desperate. Ethan's fingers tightened around the glass. He set it down with a quiet clink, his expression unreadable. Emma didn't know what he was thinking, and that terrified her. She wasn't looking for pity. She wasn't looking for some grand reward. But for some reason, she had wanted him to know that people like her existed. People who had nothing, and still chose honesty over survival. A long silence stretched between them. Then, unexpectedly, Ethan reached into his wallet and pulled out the note she had written. He unfolded the crumpled piece of paper, reading the words again. I found this wallet. I could have taken the money, but I didn't. Not because I don't need it, I do, but because I know what it's like to have something taken from you. I hope this finds its way back to you. Ethan exhaled slowly, then looked up at her. You said you know what it's like to have something taken from you, he said. What did you mean by that? Emma stiffened. She hadn't meant for this conversation to go that deep, but there was something in his voice. Not just curiosity, but something more, something personal. She hesitated, then finally spoke. My father left when I was 8, she said quietly. One day he just walked out the door and never came back. We lost everything. My mom tried to hold everything together, but she got sick, and now I'm the only one who can take care of her and my little brother. She clenched her jaw, blinking back the sting in her eyes. She refused to cry. Ethan didn't react right away. He studied her, his expression unreadable. Then, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke. I lost someone too, he said. Emma's eyes flicked up to his. She hadn't expected that. Ethan turned slightly, his gaze distant. My mother, she passed away when I was a teenager. She was everything to me. His voice was quieter now, almost as if he was speaking more to himself than to her. After she was gone, I promised myself I'd never be in a position where I could lose everything again. Emma didn't know what to say to that. She had seen his name in headlines, read about his success, his billions, but behind all of it, he was just another person who had known loss. For a moment, there was nothing but silence between them. Then Ethan sighed and straightened, slipping the note back into his wallet. Most people wouldn't have done what you did, he said, especially not someone who... He trailed off, as if choosing his words carefully. Emma's lips twitched. Someone who looks like they need the money. His eyes met hers. Yeah, she let out a small breathy laugh, but there was no humor in it. I did need it, she admitted. Badly. Ethan tilted his head, as if trying to figure her out. Then why didn't you take it? Emma exhaled, her arms wrapping around herself. Because I know how it feels to have something stolen. From you, she said, and I wouldn't want to be the reason someone else feels that way. For the first time since this conversation started, Ethan's expression softened. He leaned back against the bar, watching her for a long moment. Then, he did something that made her heart stop. This isn't a handout, Ethan said. It's what you've earned. You've worked harder than anyone else here. And more than that, you reminded me of something important. Emma swallowed hard. What? That money means nothing. If you don't have the right people around you, he said. You could have taken it from my wallet that night, but you didn't. Because you're the kind of person who does the right thing, even when no one's watching. Emma's vision blurred. She had spent her whole life fighting to survive, always waiting for the next disaster to strike. But now, for the first time, she felt something else. Hope. She wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. Thank you, she whispered. Ethan smiled. Don't thank me. Just keep proving to the world that people like you still exist. Emma nodded. And for the first time in a long time, she believed that maybe, just maybe, things were finally going to be okay.